Spartans, welcome back. It's your boy Leonidas back with another video. In today's video, be warned, there's a takeover. And the takeover is coming from none other than the Asian country of India, where these young lads are vying for the top spots. They're going toe-to-toe with GMs 100 points above their elo, and they are not backing down. They are not blinking in the face of adversity. In today's video, we look at Hikaru Nakamura, where he went 0-2 against none other than Pragg from India. Sit back, relax, and enjoy as we see the new generation unfold right before our very eyes. And as always, hold the line until next time. Peace. The game begins with the English opening, a very well-known opening between these two because they played it 3 times in the last 4 games between each other. But instead of it being the symmetrical, which pushing this pawn up here, they decide to go for the 2 knights variation, ending with the kingside fianchetto. And white decides to get aggressive immediately by jumping this knight out to the d5 square, putting pressure on this bishop. Black puts pressure on this knight right here, and Hikaru makes the interesting decision to put the knight out to h4. It is on the rim here, as they say, and you know what they say, if it's on the rim, sometimes that knight can be a little dim, as in it doesn't have as much control of the territory as it would want to be. But white finishes with a bishop on g2, and this is where things stand as of now. Pragg opens up his light square bishop, and it's at this point Hikaru makes a couple of miscalculations. This is an inaccuracy, castling and then allowing g5 and then allowing a3 to happen. He puts a3 on the board, which is a blunder by chess.com. After the computer gets to run a little bit, it will continue to increase the advantage for black. The reason that Hikaru said that this was a mistake is because he is supposed to, before castling, now he's supposed to do the best move, which is push a3 to push this bishop back out of the way. Since he did it in a reverse order and he allows this pawn to g5, it traps this knight here on the rim. This knight on the rim was fine, it was in a precarious position before, but since he pushes a3, this knight is now trapped, because after the bishop goes back, which was the only move that kept it in black's favor, white is now down a complete knight, because after the knights get traded off the board, the knight moves back and we have a knight being taken by this g5 pawn. And as you can see here, this is a very bad situation for white to be in. You can see the eval bar has plummeted in black's favor, and Pragg is just completely in control of this game right now. Hikaru, being down a knight and a pawn for 2 knights, does what any player should do. He goes on the counterattack. He makes a slight inaccurate move, putting this bishop out to h6. His plan, I believe he said, was after this rook gets over, hoping for a miracle, putting this queen out here, hoping that Pragg would block here, and then after this pawn gets moved here, maybe moves the rook out of the way, thereby hanging mate in 1. Besides a miracle like that, Pragg would probably just do something like this, and now he's pinned the queen to the king, and the queen has no other opportunity but to take this bishop, and it is just a complete loss. But Hikaru, seeing 4 or 5 moves ahead, realizes that he will lose his queen if he does that line, so he does what he should have done the move before, is take this pawn here with the idea of potentially moving his king over, moving this bishop up, giving a check here and forcing the king to get into this corner right here, and potentially having a windmill effect here, because say something happens, say Pragg does something stupid like does this, moves his king over, Pragg just is very slow on the development. All of a sudden we have just the opportunity of a lifetime to go here, check, you have to go this way, you give a check here, you have to go this way, you give a check here, and all of a sudden this king has to move and you lose your queen. Obviously Pragg's not going to let that happen, but that would just be something that Hikaru is potentially looking for in the near future. But Hikaru takes and the queen gets involved. Pragg realizes, I need to get my queen involved, I need to start mobilizing my pieces because I now have an open king file right here, and Hikaru is good enough to take advantage of that if I take too long. Hikaru now tries to do as much as he can. He looks like he's maybe going for this pawn, but some of you guys, myself included, would probably take that pawn and then lose their queen immediately, because you don't know that bishops can go backwards. But Hikaru is better than that. He's just trying to get his queen involved, but Pragg says no. He's exerting his will now. He jumps his knight into the center 2 moves in a row. This knight is coming. His pieces are getting bombarded. Hikaru has to play defense, but it's just too tight of a position. Pragg, just like an anaconda, like a python, like those constrictors, he is just tightening the reins around Hikaru's position, rerouting this knight. This knight has moved to here, it's moved to here, and it's moved to here in the last 3 out of 4 moves. Pragg is just exerting his will. White is trying to fight in the center with this pawn to f4, but Pragg says, I don't care, I'm going to attack this rook. I'm putting all my pieces that are out in the open into this attack, ensuring that you can't counterattack me, because my king, while it's safe behind the queen and the knight, could potentially fall if I don't play accurate chess. White gives a block because this pawn is protected by this queen, but the queen is only protecting that pawn. So what happens next? The king starts to slide over. He realizes that this king is in a very vulnerable position. In the future, I need to start to maybe transition my king out over to this, transition my king to the queen side, get it out of the way. Here comes White trying to blow up the center, but at the end of the day, after all the trades are made, White is just completely out of it. He loses a pawn to try to get some tempo in the center, but here comes Black. Black takes the opportunity to go for a bishop trade, because you can't really run out of the way. If you decide to avoid this trade, you would just completely lose the game immediately. Say something like this happens after this, you would just lose the game completely, because after the knight jumps in, it is GG, no re, because it looks like you could just take this, but here comes the queen giving a check, and it is mate in one on the board, because after you block, boom. Ladies and gentlemen, Pragg just exerts his will. He is up 3.4 on the eval bar, up a full piece at this point, and he just continues to walk Hikaru Nakamura down. Hikaru's trying to fight back in the center, but it is too little too late. Pragg, in the midst of all of this, just decides to move his pawn forward so he can put this rook out on an outpost, and it is just too little too late. Hikaru's trying the best he can attacking this pawn, but gives up this pawn here on e3, gets his bishop involved, and it's just a little too late for Hikaru. Pragg puts his rooks into the center. The walls are closing in around him. He's in the quicksand. He's holding his hands up, but there is no relief. There is no rope for him to grab onto after this pawn move. Hikaru is looking for some hope chess, but at this point, Pragg is too good and too well versed to lose this endgame. He is up way on the eval bar, and he's up 5 pieces of material, and Hikaru resigns. So game number 2 from today. White has to go for a draw, Black has to go for a win. So we're here for some exciting chess in this tiebreaker. And in game number 2, Black goes for the modern defense, one of my favorite things to play. I'm not nearly as good as he is, but the reason he goes for the modern, because it is a very tense position at the end of it, where it's very tricky. The lines are hard to decipher. You have to be very, very precise, and it's a perfect way to play as Black if you need to try to go for a win, because it's very hard to draw as White. And this game starts fairly even. The queens get pushed out into the middle here. We're going and fighting for the center. We're trading here. It's fairly even. As you can see, White has a slight advantage here, but we have castles. We are looking like a very sharp position. When you castle to the same side, it's going to be very quick. There's going to be lots of pieces that are thrown at each other. So we have a White putting the rook out into the center, attacking the queen. We have a slight inaccuracy by Black, but Black had an idea. The computer wanted Black to go to the e7 square, but Black puts their queen onto the c8 square instead. The reason that they did that is because they wanted to line up an attack on this pawn. So say something like White does something like this, all of a sudden Black takes this, and you can't really take back here, because if you decide to take back, all of a sudden you have opened up and ripped open this side for the queen to hop in, and it is just a very, very precarious position for White to try to defend, with the king being wide open. But obviously Pragg does not allow that to happen. Pragg instead goes for the counter attack with the bishop to g5. Hikaru is not going to go down without a fight. He makes the top engine move, rook to e8, but here comes Pragg. Pragg puts his knight onto d5, putting pressure on this piece here. You have 2 attackers, and against 1 defender right here, Pragg makes the wise decision and moves his knight out to the outpost right here, where this knight will live comfortably forever. Here comes Black. Black is trying to make some counterattacks. As you can see here, White is pushing this queen over so you can have this diagonal infiltrating with the queen. If the queen gets in there, it's going to be a bad day for Black. Black tries to attack this knight, get it out of the way, but here comes White. White is playing perfectly. They are playing so well right now. They pin this knight to this rook. Black responds with danger levels. What Black should have done instead of danger levels, this was seen as a mistake. What Black should have done before moving that pawn was take with the bishop, because after the queen takes, you just jump in here with your knight, and if this takes, you just trade off the pieces and you're sitting okay. You can either take with that queen to d5, Or you could take in with the pawn to d5, because after the pawn gets to d5, you just go with a little subtle a6 move here, and it takes the bishop takes, pawn takes, and you are still okay. But white does not allow black to get into that position. But black moves the pawn to f6. After f6, white goes for a trade, which again is a miss by white. White should have put the bishop back to e3, controlling these long diagonals here, and patrolling kind of a miniature wooden shield, if you will. Black responds, moves out of the way, white trades, black takes, and we have this queen moving to the c3 square, putting pressure on this knight. It's the doubling of pawns that could cause future headaches for black's position, so black responds accordingly by moving their bishop back to the d7 square, adding another layer of defense for this knight. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to say much in the next few seconds, but I just want you to watch how the pieces get moved, and if you've seen something that has been this strange, let me know now in the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching, you've seen white's position steadily become even more intense of a winning position, and you've seen black crumble. Where are black's pieces? All of black's major pieces are on this side of the board here, not doing a thing. Yes, maybe there's a slight bit of queen activity in the future, or bishop activity right here, but this queen is blocking this pawn right here, so the queen is completely cut off. White's pieces are so perfectly aligned. They have the rooks in line here. They have this open, strong bishop. They have this knight that is protecting these pieces. And yes, they could even take this knight at any time. This knight has been trapped here for a very long time. This knight has nothing to do. White has stranglehold on black's position. And you'll notice they have the same amount of pieces, a bishop and a pawn, but white is up 5.2 on the eval bar, because after the next few moves, black's position crumbles. They trade the queens. They give checks. Black loses their queen. This rook has infiltrated, and it is just a matter of conversion. Knight jumps in. Pawn moves. Pawn takes. King moves. Pawn moves. Reinforcing these two pawns right here. This king is now cut off from the squares. And it's just a matter of time. White's position is too good. They are up 4 pieces of material. They're up a full pawn and a bishop. And ladies and gentlemen, India has come to play. India is the new hotspot for chess. Along with China, as we've seen Ding Liren as the new world champion in classical chess, India has come to play. They have some young superstars in the making. They are going to be on top of the chess world for a very long time, and in the near future I suspect that there's going to be a couple of them vying for a world title contender spot. America, your time at being at the top is soon coming to an end. The older generation is getting older. The newer generation is not coming from inside America, it's coming from outside. I hope you guys enjoyed Hikaru Nakamura. It was a good run. I'm sure you'll be back. But congratulations to Pragg Nanandaha from India. I'm sure I butchered that. As always, hold the line until next time. Peace.